I was just really appreciative of the group's ability to focus and perform and deliver. Sometimes the last week of the season presents some challenges, some distractions and things going on inside your stadium, things going on outside your stadium. And I just thought largely our group did a really good job of kind of managing the speculation and all of those things.
Welcome to the Extra Point presented by Microsoft Surface. I'm Shelby Cassesse in for Missy Matthews. The Steelers beat the Cleveland Browns 28-14 to wrap the regular season at 9-8, but they fell just shy of a playoff berth. We're talking big picture and the road ahead with our panelists. Let's bring them on in now. Joining us is Craig Wolfley with the Steelers radio broadcast team, as well as Matt Williamson with Steelers Nation Radio. Guys, this Steelers team really seemed to figure it out after the bye. They went 7-2. They won their last 4. Wolf, we'll start with you. What are your thoughts about this team 24 hours after the regular season ends?
Well, I think it's tremendous closing pressure from within. Those guys all came together and went to the bye week at that point in time, and they didn't get waylaid. They didn't get discouraged. They simply went about their business in an appropriate way as true professionals. They just put their shoulder to the grindstone and they kept pushing, and they pushed each other. When you hold teammates to accountability, and then you're making sure that you're being accountable yourself, good things can happen when you have en masse guys trying to improve on a daily basis. And then when they are actually seeing those results come together on the field, there becomes this synergistic effect that just creates this forward momentum. And I think that when you look at a 7-2 finish, you see a lot of that forward momentum pushing from the bye week out.
Matt, how about for you? Initial reactions 24 hours after the regular season ends?
A very successful year, in my opinion. It would have been great if they could have got to the postseason. That was out of their control yesterday, but they've done everything possible to put themselves in that situation. I think they're going to have great momentum going into an offseason where they have a lot of resources to fill some holes, but the foundation is in place. And, you know, in a way, it's a tale of two seasons, pre-bye and post-bye. And the pre-bye stuff was a really, really difficult challenge. The hardest schedule in the league, extremely young, rookie quarterback, as well as a lot of first and second year guys. But people might not know this, but Coach Tomlin's record after the bye, not the game after the bye, but all the games after the bye, is like the best in history almost. I mean, he uses that week to get people refocused, take a step back, and this was a perfect example of it. I mean, what they did in their last 9 games is very, very impressive.
And Matt, you mentioned that young offense, a lot of new faces, a lot of young faces on this offense. When you look at your expectations for the offense at the start of the year and where they ended up, did they meet expectation, exceed, or fall short?
Exceed. I mean, if you told me that my rookie quarterback would win more games that he started than he lost, that rarely happens in this league. Whether you're the first pick in the draft or, you know, those guys rarely have successful seasons. I'll be very honest. I was worried when the season started that there's a chance this offensive line could derail the progress. You know, if they don't come together, will we know if Kenny's a good prospect? Will we know if the young guys are hits or misses? That was far from the case. The O-line went from a worry to a flat-out strength, as did the running game. I mean, the running game post-bye was as good as there was in the league.
And Wolf, you heard about the O-line just there. Got to ask you about them because you did see a different Najee Harris in the second half of the season and a different O-line in the second half of the season. What did you make of their progress, and how did that continuity play a role, especially on that line?
Well, it's beautiful to watch 5 fat guys come together. I mean, that's where it's at. Those guys up front did it all. Matt's exactly right. It became a strength. We all came out of training camp going, wow, this could be a problem this year. And then son of a gun, they kept getting better. They were not deterred by the outward comments of people on the outside. They kept building from within. And you take a look at, I mean, Najee, for crying out loud, this guy is the most combustible, combative, probably scrappiest runner I've seen in a long time. I mean, this guy is part running back, part wide receiver, and part MMA cage fighter, for crying out loud. You just watch him go at it. You know, you get somebody in his grill and he's trying to slam him to the ground. And he's like, is that the best you got? Bring me on another. And he just kept at it. And you know what? that inspires an offensive line, because when you have a running back that scrappy, that determined, that sort of, I want to get after it, the other guys come along and present the same sort of attitude. And then all of a sudden you've got guys going in a like manner forward, and all that energy and all that momentum comes together. That offensive line did a heck of a job, man. They fought and they kept battling. Pat Meyer did a great job of keeping those guys pointed between the white lines. And so I look for that as much as anything was one of the great driving forces coming out of the bye. Think about it. They added a half a yard per carry to the rushing yards per carry. They added 50 yards of rushing per game. They cut a complete sack off of, their sack totals per game after the bye. Just everybody got better and kept at it and kept battling. That's what winners are made of.
One last thing I want to throw in there too, because Wolf nailed it, but there's a group of guys that never get any credit for run games, and that's receivers, tight ends, fullbacks. The peripheral blockers are much better this year than they have been in previous seasons. That includes Najee and Warren in protection, Connor Hayward, Pickens, guys like that. It's a whole team effort, and they're all bought in.
Wolf, when you talk about a rookie, Kenny Pickett's rookie season, year one is obviously very unique, but that jump from year one to year two, we heard Coach Tomlin talk a lot about it today. What do you expect from Kenny Pickett making that jump into his second season?
Well, I think he's going to be a lot more, let's say, settled in his role, his leadership role, his ability to handle things. I think the expanding offense that will come around him is going to be even bigger and better. As we start to take advantage of some of the skills that he's got. It's amazing that he only threw one interception after the bye. I mean, that's just terrific stuff. His ability to analyze and read coverages and make sure to practice some ball security was huge. And then you get him on the move. I love to call him the Sundance Kid, because dadgummit, he's better when he moves. He gets out there and he moves around, and before you know it, he uses his legs to either get a first down on a third and makeable downs, or he chucks it down the field and very accurate. I look for him to wear that mantle of leadership and get better each and every week in the offseason when he gets back after you got to rest, relax, rejoice, rejuvenate, all that good stuff in the offseason. But then when you come back and the business starts, he's one of those guys that I believe really applies himself, because he's got the Kenny Cubby hole upstairs there. I think he's going to be back up there, probably getting after it. When I start coming out of my winter, relaxing.
Matt, what do you make of Kenny Pickett's performance this season?
I wanted to add one thing to what Wolf was saying as well, that people don't think about it this way, but Craig knows this extremely well. Football players, football coaches are very much creatures of habit. That I'm sure Ben Roethlisberger, Cam Hayward, July, they know exactly what they're doing. March, they know exactly what they're doing. But if you think about a rookie, especially a quarterback, since the day Kenny reported to his first day of training camp as a Pitt Panther in his final year, he has been a whirlwind. I mean, it has been, your goal is get the Panthers to as many wins and become as good a player as you can. Then immediately it turns to draft prep. And then you get drafted, and then it's a whirlwind in your whole rookie year. You've never had that time, the offseason, to just dedicate yourself to being the Steelers quarterback, because you didn't know that until April, so all that time, and now he has such an understanding of how NFL is going to attack him, the speed of the game, his teammates, all those type of things, that there's nowhere to go but up, and he already has a very high floor after a very successful rookie year.
All right, guys, we're going to take a quick break, but when we come back, the Steelers defense putting an exclamation mark on their season. We're talking about their performance right after this.
We realized what playing fundamental, sound, disciplined football looked like. I think we weren't doing that early on in the season. Even if you watch the first Cleveland game to this game, we look like a totally different defense. I can only speak for the defense, but we look like a totally different defense. I think today we played a very disciplined game. We played a very sound game, played fast, played physical. But the first game of the season was not that. You know what I'm saying? So I think we could definitely carry it over into next year.
Welcome back to the Extra Point presented by Microsoft Surface. You hear Minka Fitzpatrick there, a key member of this defense to say the least. They had quite the season as well, and you look at yesterday, guys, Craig and Matt, bringing them back on, and now you look at the season that this defense had. You look at the day they had yesterday, 7 sacks, 2 takeaways. Wolf, is that the season that you expected this defense to have with a performance like they did yesterday?
Well, I was hoping for those. I can't say that I expected it. I knew that this is a group on the rise. This is a group with a lot of moving parts, a group that at times flashed and showed great ability to shut down the run, then all of a sudden would encounter rough periods where maybe it was a little bit more of a bumpy road and shut down the runs than I anticipated. But what we saw yesterday against the Cleveland Browns was really a thing of beauty, because you had a quarterback that was able to, that being for the Browns, you got a mobile quarterback who could throw with a great runner and a great wide receiver in Amari Cooper, and they were able to handle all those things and still bring a victory home and do it in such a way that I thought it was tremendous. I mean, 7 sack-orations on Deshaun Watson. I mean, Giant Eagle bag boys sacking groceries don't do that much on Thanksgiving Day. And for crying out loud, our defensive front just came like gangbusters. And you can't say enough about the good work of, Cam Hayward leading the way. And of course, Alex Highsmith again showing he's Pro Bowl caliber. So there's a lot of good stuff there. Minka Fitzpatrick being the team MVP again does such great things. There's from the front to back and back to front. There's a lot of good things going on the defensive side of the ball.
Matt, for you, what did this defense look like, not just yesterday, but this whole season? What did they do in terms of your expectations?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's some areas of concern, some spots that you're going to look to upgrade and maybe find some more playmakers on the second level. They allowed a lot of production to top receivers throughout the year, but that mostly corrected itself as the season went on. I don't think anybody expected to lose TJ Watt early in the season and have to, endure that. We know the numbers with and without him are stark, and he's one of the best defensive players on the planet. So the fact that they could rebound when he returned, and I'm sure he'd even tell you he was not at his very best the second he walked back on the field, is very impressive. They have great leadership on that side of the ball. They have star power. They have some young guys that are exciting. Mark Robinson, DeMarvin Leal, those guys started to play a little bit more here down the stretch, which is exciting for next year. They got some free agents on that side of the ball too, and they have a lot of money invested in the defense. So I'm really excited to see how they handle, where they allocate their money, who do they try to keep, who do they go outside the organization. But I think the defense is very strong.
Wolf, run defense has been a big storyline with this D for the past 2 years, I would say. What did you see from them in terms of how they played the run in the first half of the season compared to the second? Because the difference there was pretty stark as well.
It is, and it boils down to people. I always call it the Yoda rule. Do or do not. There is no trying. You either do it, you make the play, you do your assignment, or you don't. And that's what we saw a lot of don't early on. Now, in the second half, we saw a lot of reduction in the run. In the opposition be able to run the ball on the Steelers. They got after it. They were able to set the edge, hold the point of attack, squeeze from the backside. You add some downhill bangers coming along, like the Mark Robinson, like Matt was talking about. You add the fact that guys were playing at a better level, a higher level when TJ came back. Again, he makes a difference, just his presence. You think about it, you tear a pec and then you get knee surgery. That's something that takes a while to get over. And certainly just his presence out there just really kind of lifts everybody. Think about it. The opposition knows where TJ Watt is at. The opposition knows where Cam Hayward's at. Larry Ogunjobi supplied some great run defense and came through in the second half of the season. I thought he did some really good stuff. And of course, like I said, Alex Highsmith playing at a Pro Bowl level. Now they've got some, as Matt was pointing out very, very judiciously, there's some areas of concern that they got to work at, and they're going to get after it. But overall, this defense did some great stuff, especially in stopping the run. When you go back to things like Minnesota last year and some of the other games that we saw, this year, the Ravens dropping 215 on the Steelers, but they're able to come back and rebound from that rather than going into a slide for a period of time. So it's coming around, and I think defensively speaking, this is a young defense that's going to get better.
All right, guys, definitely have to hear from both of you on this, but who gets your defensive game ball yesterday, Matt?
Wow. Is Cam too easy?
No, that's my pick too.
I'm going with Highsmith. Wolf mentioned him a couple times. I agree that he is a Pro Bowl type player. I think he's a long-term member of this team, and you got to get him locked up. But he went against a very talented left tackle and Jedrick Wills and consistently got the better of him. We kind of mentioned this just a minute ago with the run defense. It's easy to look at TJ and Highsmith and the sacks they've accumulated, but they do an awfully good job of forcing everything to the inside too and keeping contained. And the offenses they faced of late, the Ravens twice, Atlanta, Carolina, Nick Chubb. I mean, these are the best running teams in the league. Yeah,
Matt, you're dead on, but I like low-hanging fruit. Cam Hayward may be low-hanging fruit, but baby, he is I give him the game ball. I mean, first of all, just the fact that he didn't lose his mind over the sack that was taken away from him.
Yes.
I don't know. In my mind, I was losing it up in the booth. I'm like, you got to be kidding me. Because now we've entered into the National Touch Football League. If this is something as a standard by which we have to rise to, I don't know what more you can do other than ask the guy, Deshaun, would you please sit down on the ground? All right, take a knee here. I mean, that's the only other thing I can figure. So, yeah, I give it to Cam.
As if Watson wasn't hard enough to get on the ground as it is,
Thank you. Yes, exactly so.
Well, it may be low-hanging fruit, but that's because he played out of his mind. Cam Hayward has my defensive game ball as well. I mean, he's a fine wine, guys. He just gets better with age, it seems like, and he had such an aggressive year, especially when you consider TJ Watt not being there for a good portion of the season. He really stepped up in ways we haven't even seen before, and I was really happy to see him be so aggressive and get as much success as he's had this year. When you look at the team as a whole, Matt, what kind of growth did you see this season that you can really bridge into next year?
Culture. I mean, not that to me, that's the greatest strength of this organization. That starts with generations of ownership, faith in front office, head coaches, stability, doing things the right way. Like, don't quote me exactly, but I know Miles Jack was asked when things were going rough around here, how's this compare to your time in Jacksonville, where they lost a lot of games and were used to being on the wrong side of wins and losses? And he was blown away with, this organization, the Steelers, doesn't flinch. They know what it takes to win. They don't get too down. Mason Cole has said a lot of those type of things too. And year after year, when people from outside the organization, reference the Steelers compared to where they were in other stops, it's always favorable. It's always the standard is the standard. That we're tanking's not even in the vocabulary, things of that nature. And I think that's where it starts.
It's funny, Matt, you're dead on, because I think Miles referred to the house is on fire, mortgages are at stake, everybody's getting fired, and everybody's running for cover, something of that nature. And that doesn't happen here. I mean, the fact of the matter is just what you spoke to, Matt. The culture was here before I got here, which I've been around a long time, but it was here before I got here, and it's here after I left as a player, and have watched it throughout all my broadcasting years. You're dead on. This culture that is so prevalent in the locker room there, it's a generational thing, and Cam Hayward is the next standard bearer of that generation, that great generation to generation of leaders in that clubhouse that don't blink in the face of adversity, as Mike Tomlin likes to say. That's their greatest strength, and I think that builds a foundation, or lays the foundation year in and year out for whatever is going to happen in the future.
All right, guys, that's going to do it for us here at the Extra Point presented by Microsoft Surface. For Matt Williamson and Craig Wolfley, I'm Shelby Cassesse. Thank you so much for joining us. Have a great night.